The person who earns the least in your friend group might be the happiest one at the table, and that truth changes everything you thought you knew about money. Think about the last time you checked your bank account after payday. That number went up, but did your smile get any wider? Probably not. Now think about the last time you laughed so hard your stomach hurt. It probably cost you nothing at all. This is the contradiction most people never stop to examine. We chase dollars thinking they will deliver joy, but joy keeps showing up in moments we never planned or paid for. Someone out there drives a luxury car to a job they hate every single morning. Someone else rides the bus with headphones on listening to their favorite song and feels like the whole world belongs to them. The difference between these two people is not their income. It is not their job title. It is not the neighborhood they live in. The difference lives somewhere deeper than any of those things. It lives in how they see what they already have. Most people believe happiness is something you purchase. They think it arrives in a package or sits in a driveway or hangs in a closet. But if that were true, then every wealthy person would walk around glowing with contentment. We all know that is not the case. Some of the most financially successful people you will ever meet carry a heaviness behind their eyes that no amount of money has been able to fix. Meanwhile, there are people stretching every dollar who still find reasons to laugh every single day. This is not about romanticizing poverty. Money matters, and anyone who says otherwise has probably never worried about rent. But once your basic needs are covered, something interesting happens. The connection between more money and more happiness starts to weaken. It does not disappear completely, but it becomes thinner and thinner, like a thread about to snap. What fills that gap is not another raise or another purchase. It is something far less expensive and far more powerful. Let me walk you through what that something actually looks like in everyday life. Think about the last time you bought something you had been wanting for weeks. Maybe it was a new phone or a jacket or a pair of shoes you saw online. The moment you clicked that buy button felt electric. Your brain lit up with anticipation. The package arrived and you opened it with excitement. For a day or two everything felt great. But then something shifted. The newness faded. The excitement cooled. Within a week that item became just another thing sitting in your home. It blended into the background like it had always been there. You stopped noticing it. You stopped feeling anything about it at all. But the credit card bill did not fade. It showed up the next month with full force. And the month after that. And maybe the month after that too. The joy lasted days, but the financial weight lasted months. This is not a flaw in the product you bought. This is how your brain works. It is wired to adapt. When something good enters your life, your mind adjusts to it remarkably fast. That adjustment is useful in many situations, but it works against you when it comes to purchases. You buy something expecting lasting happiness, and your brain turns it into background noise before you even finish paying for it. Open your closet right now and count how many items you forgot you owned. There are probably shirts with tags still on them. Shoes you wore once and never touched again. Gadgets sitting in drawers collecting dust. Every single one of those things felt essential when you bought it. Every single one of those things gave you a burst of excitement that vanished faster than you expected. This pattern repeats itself endlessly because your brain treats every new purchase the same way. A spike of pleasure followed by rapid adjustment followed by a return to baseline. Then the cycle begins again with something new catching your eye. Psychologists have studied this phenomenon for decades. They call it hedonic adaptation. It means that no matter how good something is, your emotional response to it will eventually flatten out. You return to your normal level of happiness regardless of what you gained. This applies to almost everything. A bigger apartment feels amazing for the first month, then it just feels like home. A salary increase feels incredible for a few weeks, then it becomes your new normal. A new car thrills you until the first scratch appears and suddenly it is just transportation again. The speed of this adaptation is what surprises most people. They expect the happiness to last as long as they own the thing. But it never does. The item stays, but the feeling leaves. And once that feeling leaves, you start scanning for the next thing that might bring it back. This is where the treadmill begins. You buy something and feel good. The feeling fades. You buy something else. The feeling fades again, but faster this time. So you buy something bigger or more expensive, hoping for a stronger hit. But the adaptation speeds up every time. Your brain requires more and more stimulation to reach the same level of satisfaction. What used to thrill you barely registers anymore. A domestic trip used to fill you with excitement. Now only an international destination feels worth the effort. A nice dinner out used to feel like a treat. Now only a high-end restaurant moves the needle. The baseline keeps rising and satisfaction keeps requiring more fuel to maintain. This is not greed. This is biology working against your happiness in a consumer-driven world. Your brain evolved to always seek the next reward. In ancient times, this kept your ancestors alive. They could never afford to feel fully satisfied because complacency meant danger. But in modern life, this wiring creates an endless loop of wanting that no amount of spending can satisfy. The good news is that not all spending triggers this same empty cycle. Research consistently shows that people who spend money on experiences rather than objects report higher and longer-lasting satisfaction. The reason is simple. Objects sit in your environment and become invisible through familiarity. But experiences become memories, and memories have a special quality. They actually improve over time. Think about a trip you took years ago. You probably remember the highlights more vividly than the frustrations. The delayed flight and the bad weather and the sore feet fade from memory. What remains is the laughter and the beauty and the sense of adventure. Your brain edits the experience into its best version and stores it that way. Meanwhile, that expensive watch you bought the same year just sits on your wrist being a watch. There is no story attached to it. There is no warmth in the memory of purchasing it. It does not connect you to another person or a meaningful moment. It is just metal and glass doing what metal and glass do. When you spend money on a meal with someone you love, something different happens. The food itself might not be remarkable, but the conversation stays with you. The laughter echoes in your memory for years. The feeling of connection lingers long after the plates are cleared. That meal cost far less than a designer bag but delivered far more lasting happiness. The same principle applies to concerts and road trips and cooking classes and afternoon walks with a friend. These experiences weave themselves into the story of your life. They become part of who you are. No object can do that. No purchase can replicate the feeling of being fully present with someone who matters to you. This is why the question is never just about how much you spend. It is about what you spend it on. Two people can have identical budgets and end up with wildly different levels of happiness depending on where their money goes. One fills their home with things. The other fills their calendar with moments. 10 years from now, the first person will have a house full of outdated objects. The second person will have a heart full of stories. The research is clear on this. People with strong materialistic tendencies consistently report lower life satisfaction than those who prioritize experiences and relationships. When you define your worth by what you own, you create a gap that can never be closed. There will always be something newer, and something better, and something more expensive calling your name. But when you define your worth by who you are and who you share your life with, that gap closes naturally. You stop measuring yourself against an impossible standard and start appreciating what already exists in your world. This brings us to one of the most destructive forces working against modern happiness. It lives in your pocket, and you check it dozens of times every day. Social media has fundamentally changed how we evaluate our own lives. Every time you open an app, you are exposed to a carefully curated highlight reel of other people's existence. Someone is posting photos from a tropical vacation. Someone else just bought a new home. Another person is celebrating a promotion with an expensive dinner. These images flood your brain with comparison data that makes your own life feel small. But here is what you never see behind those posts. You do not see the credit card debt funding that vacation. You do not see the arguments happening off camera. You do not see the anxiety attacks at 3 a.m. or the loneliness that follows the likes and comments. You see the peak moment extracted from a life that is just as complicated and messy as yours. Comparing your behind-the-scenes footage to someone else's highlight reel is a game you will never win. It is fundamentally unfair because you are measuring your full reality against their best performance. Nobody posts their failures. Nobody shares the boring afternoons or the crying in the car after work. You only see triumph and beauty and success, and then you look at your own ordinary Tuesday and feel like you are falling behind. This comparison trap works on a deeper level than most people realize. It does not just make you feel bad in the moment. It actually raises your baseline expectations for what normal life should look like. The more luxury and excitement you see online, the more your own routine feels inadequate. Your standards keep climbing without you even noticing. Last year, a weekend at home felt restful. Now it feels lazy because you saw 3 people post about their exciting weekend plans. Last month, your apartment felt cozy. Now it feels cramped because you watched a home tour of someone's penthouse. Your reality did not change. Your perception of it did. And that shift in perception is enough to drain the happiness right out of your daily life. The same thing happens after catching up with old friends. You attend a reunion or a dinner and hear about someone's promotion or new business or exciting life change. Suddenly your own path feels unremarkable. You feel stuck while everyone else seems to be moving forward at high speed. But you are only seeing their results. You are not seeing the years of struggle and doubt and failure that preceded those results. Everyone curates what they share. Everyone emphasizes the wins and minimizes the losses. When you compare your full unedited life to someone else's greatest hits, you will always come up short. Recognizing this does not require you to stop caring about other people's success. It simply means understanding that comparison is never an equal playing field. You are always comparing your worst days to their best ones. Once you truly understand that, the weight of comparison starts to lift. You stop expecting yourself to match a standard that was never real in the first place. Now add the pressure of achievement to this mix, and daily life becomes even more exhausting. Many people fill every hour with work because they believe falling behind is the worst thing that could happen. They sacrifice weekends and evenings and holidays at the altar of productivity. They tell themselves this is temporary. They say they will rest once they reach the next milestone. But the next milestone always leads to another one. And rest keeps getting pushed further and further into the future until it disappears entirely. What starts as ambition slowly transforms into obligation. The career that was supposed to create freedom becomes a cage. The work that was supposed to fund a good life becomes the thing that prevents you from living one. Hours that could be spent with family get swallowed by deadlines. Friendships fade because there is never time to nurture them. The things that actually sustain long-term happiness get sacrificed for things that only deliver short-term results. Multiple long-term studies have reached the same conclusion. The single most important predictor of lasting happiness is not income, or status, or achievement. It is the quality of your close relationships. People with strong, meaningful connections to others consistently report higher life satisfaction regardless of their financial situation. Money can make life more comfortable, but it cannot replace the feeling of being truly known and loved by another person. Imagine earning more money than you ever dreamed possible but having no one to share a meal with. Imagine affording any vacation on Earth but having no one who would want to go with you. Imagine buying the perfect home but walking into empty silence every evening. That is not success. That is loneliness wearing an expensive costume. Real wealth includes people who care about you. People who notice when you are quiet. People who show up without being asked. No salary in the world can manufacture that kind of connection. It has to be built slowly over time through presence and vulnerability and consistent effort. And it cannot be built if all your time belongs to work. This is why balance is not a luxury. It is a necessity. The way you divide your hours between earning and living determines the shape of your entire existence. You can earn endlessly, but if you never pause to enjoy what that earning provides, then the whole system is broken. The money accumulates, but the life stays empty. Recently, a term has entered everyday conversation that captures this problem perfectly. Burnout. Most people first dismiss it as simple tiredness. They think a good night of sleep or a weekend off will fix everything. But burnout is not ordinary fatigue. It is a deeper exhaustion that seeps into every part of your functioning. It dulls your enthusiasm. It shortens your patience. It makes everything feel heavier than it should. Tasks that used to take minutes now feel like mountains. Hobbies that once recharged you now feel like another obligation on an already full list. Morning arrives and you feel no more rested than when you went to bed. Motivation disappears without explanation. Small irritations that you once would have shrugged off now trigger disproportionate frustration. These are warning signs that your system is overwhelmed. Your body and mind are telling you that the current pace is unsustainable. But most people ignore these signals. They push through. They tell themselves that slowing down means weakness. They believe the discomfort is temporary, and that endurance alone will carry them through. Often it does not. The body keeps a score and eventually it presents the bill whether you are ready to pay it or not. Consider someone in their early 30s who climbed the career ladder faster than anyone expected. The promotion announcement felt like vindication. All those late nights and missed events finally paid off. But the new role brought new weight. More responsibility. More hours. More people depending on decisions that had to be made faster than ever. The salary increase was significant. New purchases followed. A better apartment. Nicer clothes. dinners at places that used to feel out of reach. For a few weeks everything felt elevated. Life seemed to match the vision that years of hard work were building toward. But then adaptation kicked in. The nicer apartment became just an apartment. The higher salary became just a number. The new clothes hung in the closet untouched after the first few wears. Meanwhile, the work kept expanding. Meetings multiplied. Emails arrived at all hours. The boundary between professional life and personal life dissolved completely. Friends noticed the absence first. Invitations were declined so often that they eventually stopped coming. Family gatherings were attended physically but not mentally. The body was there, but the mind was still at the office solving problems that would not rest. Outsiders saw only the success. They commented on the impressive title and the visible markers of achievement. They said they wished they had the same drive and luck. But inside that successful exterior was a person who could not remember the last time they laughed without thinking about work. Could not remember the last time they felt truly present in a moment. Could not remember what they used to do for fun before ambition consumed every available hour. This story is not rare. It plays out in millions of lives every single day across every industry and income level. People trade their well-being for advancement, and only realize the cost when the damage is already significant. The pursuit of more becomes the enemy of enough. And enough is where happiness actually lives. Perfectionism amplifies this entire problem. When you believe everything must be done flawlessly, the pressure never ends. You achieve something impressive, and instead of celebrating, you immediately notice what could have been better. You finish a project that others praise, and all you see are the imperfections. This mindset creates an impossible standard. No result is ever good enough because your internal measuring stick has no maximum mark. It just keeps extending upward no matter how high you reach. Other people can see your excellence clearly. They tell you the work is outstanding. They point out how far you have come. But their words bounce off because your own assessment carries more weight than anyone else's opinion. And your assessment is always the same. Not enough. Could be better. Should have tried harder. This relentless self-criticism drains the pleasure from every accomplishment before you have a chance to enjoy it. You climb the mountain, but instead of admiring the view, you immediately start looking for a taller peak. Rest feels like laziness. Satisfaction feels like complacency. Joy feels like something you have not yet earned. Living this way builds impressive resumes but fragile spirits. The external markers of success accumulate, while the internal experience of happiness deteriorates. You become a person who looks great on paper but feels hollow in practice. Psychology has studied this extensively, and the findings are consistent. Sustainable well-being comes not from perfection but from consistency. It comes from showing up regularly and accepting that some days will be average. An 80% day is still a meaningful day. A good enough effort is still an effort worth respecting. The person who shows up at 80% every day for years builds something far more stable and lasting than the person who demands 100% and burns out in months. Progress does not require perfection. It requires persistence. And persistence requires rest. These things are not in conflict. They support each other like pillars holding up the same roof. Another pattern deserves attention here. When stress builds and emotions feel heavy, many people reach for their wallets. This is emotional spending. It is the impulse to buy something, anything, when feelings become uncomfortable. A bad day at work leads to an unnecessary online purchase. An argument with a partner triggers a food delivery order. Boredom in the evening results in scrolling through shopping apps until something ends up in a cart. In the moment, this spending provides relief. It distracts from the discomfort. It creates a small hit of pleasure that temporarily overrides the negative emotion. But the relief is shallow and brief. Hours later, the stress returns unchanged. The argument remains unresolved. The boredom creeps back. And now there is an additional layer of regret or financial pressure sitting on top of everything else. The spending that was supposed to fix the problem created a new one. This cycle can become deeply ingrained over time. Stress triggers spending. Spending provides momentary escape. The escape ends and reality returns worse than before because now guilt and financial strain are added to the original stress. Then more spending follows to manage those new feelings. And the loop continues tightening. Breaking this pattern requires awareness first and alternatives second. When you notice the urge to spend as a response to emotion, pause before acting. Ask yourself what you are actually feeling beneath the impulse. Often it is loneliness or frustration or boredom or anxiety. None of these are problems that money can solve. A walk outside might address the restlessness. A phone call to someone you trust might address the loneliness. A few minutes of sitting quietly might address the overwhelm. These alternatives cost nothing and address the actual problem rather than masking it with temporary pleasure. If you have already recognized the signs of burnout in your own life, the most important step is counterintuitive. The answer is not to push harder. It is to slow down deliberately. Your instinct might tell you that resting now means falling behind. That instinct is wrong. Rest is not the opposite of productivity. It is what makes productivity sustainable. A schedule packed with obligations leaves no room for recovery. And without recovery, performance declines anyway. You end up working more hours but producing lower quality results while feeling progressively worse about everything. It is a losing equation no matter how you calculate it. People who have successfully navigated burnout share a common story. Most of them hit a wall before they made any changes. They kept pushing until their body refused to cooperate. Sleep became difficult. Health problems appeared. Relationships suffered visible damage. Only then did they give themselves permission to pause. And what they discovered in that pause surprised them. The first few days of rest felt uncomfortable. Without the constant motion of productivity, their minds filled with anxiety. They felt guilty for not working. They felt purposeless without tasks to complete. But if they stayed with it, something shifted. The mental noise began to quiet. Thoughts became clearer. Energy slowly returned. They remembered activities they used to enjoy. They reconnected with people they had neglected. They discovered that life still had texture and color outside of work. The rest did not destroy their careers. It saved them. They returned to work with renewed focus and creativity. Problems that seemed impossible before the break suddenly had obvious solutions. The time away did not set them back. It propelled them forward with more clarity than grinding ever could. Rest is not wasted time. Rest is an investment in everything that follows it. Just as you would never expect a phone to run indefinitely without charging, you cannot expect your mind and body to perform without restoration. The charge is not optional. It is required. Now we work so hard because we believe it leads to a better life. And it does in many ways. Hard work creates opportunity and stability and growth. These things matter. But they only matter if you can actually experience the life you are building. If all your energy goes into constructing a future you never arrive at, then the whole project misses its purpose. Goals are important. Achievement has genuine value. But these things exist to serve your life, not to consume it. The moment work stops being a means to an end and becomes the only thing that defines you, something essential has been lost. And recovering it requires intentional effort. So how do we find our way back to genuine, lasting satisfaction? The answer is remarkably ordinary. It does not require a dramatic life change or an expensive purchase or a radical reinvention of everything you know. It starts with noticing what is already there. The small pleasures you rush past every day without acknowledgement. The moments of quiet contentment you dismiss as unimportant because they do not match the dramatic happiness you see portrayed in media. Real happiness is rarely dramatic. It is usually quiet. It lives in a warm cup of coffee on a slow morning. It shows up in the sound of rain against a window when you have nowhere to be. It exists in the feeling of fresh air on your face during a walk you almost decided to skip. It appears in a text from someone who was thinking about you. It hides in the satisfaction of cooking a simple meal and sitting down to eat it without rushing. These moments seem small. They do not photograph well. They would not impress anyone on social media. But they are the actual building blocks of a happy life. They are available every single day to anyone willing to notice them. And unlike expensive purchases, they do not trigger the cycle of adaptation and disappointment. You can enjoy your morning coffee for decades without it losing its magic, because the pleasure comes from the ritual and the pause, not from the novelty. The growing interest in minimalist living and spending challenges reflects the collective awakening to this truth. People are discovering through direct experience what researchers have said for years. More stuff does not mean more happiness. In fact, the relationship often runs in reverse. The more possessions you accumulate, the more mental energy goes toward maintaining and organizing and worrying about those possessions. Reducing physical clutter creates mental clarity. People who simplify their environments consistently report feeling lighter and more at ease. They describe a sense of freedom that more objects never provided. When your home contains only things that serve a purpose or bring genuine joy, the space itself becomes a source of calm rather than stress. Reading offers another path to lasting satisfaction at minimal cost. A library card or an affordable digital subscription opens unlimited worlds of thought and imagination. Each book is an experience that cannot become ordinary through repetition, because every page offers something new. Knowledge compounds over time in ways that physical objects cannot. What you learn becomes part of how you think and see the world. It enriches every conversation and every decision long after the last page is turned. No gadget in the world can replicate that kind of value. Walking is perhaps the most underrated happiness tool available to humans. It costs nothing. It requires no equipment. It can be done almost anywhere at any time. And its benefits extend across every dimension of well-being. Physically, it strengthens the body. Mentally, it clears the mind. Emotionally, it stabilizes mood. Research shows that even brief walks significantly reduce stress hormones and increase feelings of calm and optimism. A 20-minute walk can shift your entire emotional state without spending a single dollar. Cooking a meal at home carries similar hidden value. The act of preparing food with your own hands creates a connection to what you eat that no restaurant can replicate. It does not need to be complicated or fancy. A simple meal made with care and eaten slowly provides a satisfaction that expensive dining often lacks. The value comes not from the ingredients but from the intention and presence you bring to the process. The warmth of a homemade meal lives in the memory differently than any takeout order ever could. This brings up an important concept. There is a difference between being rich in money and being rich in time. Two people with identical incomes can have completely different experiences of life depending on how they manage their hours. One is constantly rushing from obligation to obligation, feeling perpetually behind. The other moves through their day with spaciousness and intention fully present in each moment. The first person has money but no life. The second person has a life that money supports but does not dominate. Time wealth may be more important than financial wealth beyond a certain point. Money can always be earned again. A promotion can always come later. But the hours you spend today are gone forever once they pass. No amount of future earnings can recover a missed childhood moment, or a friendship that faded from neglect, or a decade of your own life spent exclusively in an office. How you spend your time is ultimately how you spend your life. And spending it entirely on earning creates a strange kind of poverty that looks like abundance from the outside. Hobbies deserve more respect than most adults give them. Somewhere between childhood and the pressures of adult life, many people abandon the activities that once brought them pure joy. They dismiss hobbies as unproductive or childish. They feel guilty spending time on anything that does not generate income or advance their career. This is a profound mistake. Hobbies are not luxuries. They are maintenance for your spirit. Growing a plant and watching it develop over weeks creates a quiet sense of accomplishment that requires almost no money. Drawing or painting connects you to a creative part of yourself that work may never touch. Running or cycling gives your body the movement it craves while clearing mental clutter. None of these activities are expensive. None of them require special talent. All of them reliably produce the kind of engaged, focused satisfaction that purchasing things never delivers. The key ingredient in all these activities is not skill or cost. It is absorption. When you become fully immersed in an activity, time disappears. Self-consciousness fades. Worries quiet themselves without effort. This state of complete engagement is strongly linked to well-being. It cannot be purchased or shortcut. It can only be entered through activities that genuinely hold your attention and interest. For one person that might be gardening. For another it might be playing music. For someone else it might be solving puzzles or writing or building things with their hands. The specific activity matters less than the quality of attention you bring to it. What counts is that you lose yourself in it. That losing yourself is actually a finding. You find a version of yourself that exists beneath all the stress and comparison and striving. A version that is simply present and alive and content. Relationships need the same kind of intentional attention. Modern life has created a strange paradox. We are more connected than ever through technology, but more isolated than ever in practice. People have hundreds of online contacts, but no one they could call at midnight during a crisis. The quantity of connections has increased while the quality has decreased. Research on happiness returns to this finding repeatedly. It is not how many people you know that matters. It is how deeply you know and are known by a few key people. One genuine friendship where you can be completely yourself is worth more to your happiness than 1,000 surface-level connections where you perform a polished version of yourself. Depth over breadth. authenticity over popularity. These principles apply to social life just as they apply to spending. A few meaningful conversations each week contribute more to your well-being than hours of scrolling through updates from people you barely remember. Investing time in the people who truly matter creates returns that compound for decades. Those relationships become safety nets and sources of joy and reasons to celebrate that no amount of solo success can replicate. Changing how you compare yourself is another powerful shift available to anyone at any time. The instinct to measure yourself against others is natural. But it is also misleading. You never have enough information about someone else's life to make a fair comparison. You see their results without knowing their sacrifices. You see their smiles without knowing their tears. You see a single frame from a movie that is far more complicated than it appears. A healthier comparison looks inward. How are you doing compared to where you were a year ago? 6 months ago? Last week? Are you learning? Are you growing even slowly? Are you showing up for the things that matter to you? If the answer is yes, then you are succeeding regardless of what anyone else is doing. Personal growth is not a race with external competitors. It is a quiet internal process that happens at its own pace. Celebrating small progress is not lowering your standards. It is recognizing reality. Big changes are made of tiny steps. Every large transformation started with a single small decision repeated over time. The person you want to become is built one day at a time, not one dramatic moment at a time. Being patient with yourself is not weakness. It is wisdom. The ability to delay gratification also plays a meaningful role in lasting happiness. In a world designed to deliver instant pleasure at every turn, the capacity to wait becomes almost revolutionary. Everything around you offers immediate satisfaction. Same-day delivery. Instant streaming. Endless content at the tap of a finger. But the most rewarding experiences in life often require patience. A garden does not produce fruit the day you plant it. A skill does not develop the first time you practice it. A relationship does not deepen after a single conversation. The things most worth having take time. And the waiting itself is not wasted time. It builds anticipation that amplifies the eventual reward. Something you work toward for months feels more satisfying than something you obtained instantly. The effort and patience become part of the value. There is a useful distinction between two types of pleasure that helps clarify all of this. The first type is the excitement of pursuing something new. The thrill of anticipation. The rush of acquisition. The spike of novelty. This type of pleasure is intense but brief. It burns hot and fades fast. The second type is the calm satisfaction of appreciating what you already have. The quiet contentment of a life that fits you well. The steady warmth of gratitude for things you no longer notice because they have been present so long. This type of pleasure is subtle but durable. It does not demand your attention, but it sustains you constantly in the background. Most people are heavily biased toward the first type. They chase the next goal and the next purchase and the next experience, hoping each one will finally deliver lasting happiness. But each one only delivers a temporary spike before the baseline reasserts itself. The second type requires cultivation. It does not come naturally in a world that constantly tells you what you have is not enough. You have to practice noticing what is already good. You have to deliberately pause and appreciate things your brain has filed away as ordinary. This is not about being complacent or abandoning ambition. It is about building a foundation of contentment that does not depend on external achievements to sustain itself. Both types of pleasure have their place. Pursuing goals gives life direction and meaning. But if pursuit is all you know, then you will never arrive anywhere. You will spend your entire life reaching for the next thing without ever standing still long enough to enjoy where you are. Our brains evolved in environments where this restlessness was adaptive. Ancient humans who felt permanently satisfied did not survive as well as those who kept seeking more resources and safer conditions and better opportunities. That drive served our species well for thousands of years. But the modern environment is different from anything our ancestors faced. Most of us are not in physical danger. Most of us have access to food and shelter and basic security. Yet our brains still operate with the same restless programming that assumes survival is at stake. This mismatch creates unnecessary suffering. Your brain tells you that you need more when what you actually need is to appreciate what already exists. It urges you forward when what you actually need is to sit still for a moment. Fighting this programming requires conscious effort. You cannot simply decide to be satisfied and have your brain comply. But you can build habits and environments that support contentment. You can reduce exposure to comparison triggers. You can spend more time in activities that promote presence rather than acquisition. You can surround yourself with people who value being over having. Neuroscience supports this approach. The brain circuits activated by intense momentary pleasure are different from those activated by sustained contentment. Quick hits of excitement come and go rapidly. But the neural patterns associated with calm satisfaction can be strengthened over time through repetition. Every time you pause to appreciate something small, you are literally training your brain to find more satisfaction in daily life. Every time you resist an impulse purchase and find that you are fine without it, you are weakening the association between buying and happiness. These changes are gradual but real. They reshape your experience of life from the inside out without requiring any external circumstances to change. The modern world works against this in obvious ways. Short videos and constant notifications and algorithmic feeds are all designed to deliver rapid stimulation. They train your brain to expect constant novelty and to feel bored the instant stimulation pauses. This makes quiet satisfaction harder to access because your threshold for interest keeps rising. You need more and more stimulation to feel engaged. Deliberately slowing down counteracts this. Choosing activities that unfold slowly. Spending time in nature where nothing is optimized for your attention. Reading long-form content that requires patience. Having face-to-face conversations that meander without an agenda. These slower experiences rebuild your capacity for gentle satisfaction. They remind your brain that pleasure does not always need to be intense to be real. With consistent practice, the quiet moments start to register again. The coffee tastes better when you actually notice it. The walk feels more restorative when you leave your phone behind. The conversation goes deeper when you are not mentally composing your next social media post. Life gets richer not by adding more to it but by paying attention to what is already there. If we follow this thinking to its logical conclusion, something becomes clear. True wealth is not about accumulation. It is about appreciation. The richest person in any room might be the one with the fewest possessions but the deepest capacity to enjoy each day as it comes. Reducing the size of your desires is faster and more reliable than expanding your means to meet them. You can spend years chasing a bigger income, or you can spend minutes adjusting your perspective. Both lead to greater satisfaction, but one path is available immediately and costs nothing. Research on money and happiness has been conducted across cultures and decades. The findings are remarkably consistent. Income strongly predicts happiness up to the point where basic needs and reasonable comfort are met. Beyond that threshold, additional income has diminishing returns for emotional well-being. What starts to matter more is health and relationships and autonomy and purpose, and the ability to spend time in ways that feel meaningful. Yet most people continue fixating on income long after crossing that threshold. The reason is understandable. Money is visible and measurable. You can watch the number grow. You can compare it to benchmarks. You can feel progress in concrete terms. Meanwhile, the things that actually matter most for happiness are invisible and hard to quantify. How do you measure the depth of a friendship? How do you calculate the value of an afternoon spent doing nothing productive but feeling completely at peace? How do you assign a number to the warmth of a quiet evening with someone you love? You cannot. And because you cannot, they get deprioritized in favor of things you can track and show and compare. This is the fundamental error that leads so many successful people to feel empty. They optimized for the measurable and neglected the meaningful. They built impressive portfolios and barren personal lives. They earned admiration from strangers but lost intimacy with the people who matter most. Correcting this does not require abandoning success. It requires expanding your definition of it. Success that includes time for rest and space for connection and room for enjoyment is not lesser success. It is more complete success. It serves the whole person rather than just the professional identity. The core message here is not that ambition is bad or that money does not matter. Both ambition and money have genuine value. They create options and security and opportunities that improve life in real ways. The message is simpler than that. Do not sacrifice the happiness available today for a happiness you hope to achieve tomorrow. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. Today is here right now, offering its small pleasures and quiet joys. Take them. You do not need to make dramatic changes overnight. Grand resolutions tend to collapse under their own weight. Instead, consider the smallest possible adjustment. On your way home tonight, maybe walk for 10 extra minutes. Maybe put your phone in your bag instead of your hand and notice what you see and hear around you. Maybe listen to a song you used to love and let yourself feel whatever it brings up. Maybe call someone you have been meaning to reach out to and tell them you were thinking of them. Maybe sit in silence for 5 minutes and do absolutely nothing. Any one of these acts is small enough to feel effortless but powerful enough to shift something inside you. Small habits built consistently create compound changes over time. A 5-minute walk today becomes a daily practice next month, becomes a fundamental part of your identity in a year. A single phone call today becomes a regular check and becomes a deep, renewed friendship. A moment of gratitude today becomes a natural habit, becomes an entirely different relationship with your own life. Happiness is not an event that arrives one day in dramatic fashion. It is an accumulation of unremarkable moments noticed and appreciated over time. It is built in the ordinary hours, not the exceptional ones. It lives in Tuesday afternoons and Wednesday mornings and Sunday evenings when nothing special is happening but you feel okay with exactly where you are. If you remember nothing else from this, let 3 ideas stay with you. First, your brain adapts to everything good, which means chasing bigger thrills always leads to diminishing returns. The answer is not more stimulation but deeper appreciation of what already exists. Second, comparison will always make you feel inadequate because you are measuring your complete reality against someone else's best moment. Compare yourself only to who you were before and progress becomes visible everywhere. Third, lasting happiness comes not from dramatic peaks but from a steady baseline of contentment built through presence and gratitude and connection. You do not need all three at once. One is enough to start. Put your phone down for an hour today. Make yourself a cup of something warm and drink it slowly. Step outside and breathe. Call someone you miss. Sit with a book. Do one thing that asks nothing of you except to be fully there while you do it. These tiny acts are not trivial. They are the actual substance of a well-lived life. And over time they reshape everything. Not because they are powerful in isolation, but because they accumulate into something that no purchase and no promotion and no amount of money could ever build on their own. The person who earns millions but never pauses is not wealthy. They are just busy. The person who earns modestly but savors their mornings and laughs with friends and sleeps without dread is richer in every way that actually matters. True abundance might not be about having more at all. It might be about finally learning to enjoy what is already yours.